Good morning, world. Welcome to another episode of Xendependently Minded. If you are a new or returning listener, I truly hope you enjoy this episode. Before we get into the episode, here's a brief disclaimer. Enjoy. The views and opinions expressed by past, present, and future guests of Xendependently Minded have not been expressed by me, and they may not even be shared by me. The views and opinions that I express are, of course, satirical. If you're confused, then try this thought experiment to help you understand. If you like what I said, or say, and you agree, then you can tell yourself that it is my real opinion, and it's not satirical. If you don't agree with what I say, and you're disgusted and repulsed by it, then obviously I'm just being satirical. Obviously, these aren't my real opinions, because this is clearly a character, and nobody would actually have these opinions, would they? Anyway, enjoy the episode. How's it going, boys and girls? It's your boy, frustrated populist here, back at it with another episode of Xendependently Minded. So not really that much has happened since we last spoke, surprisingly. Usually it's like a couple weeks go by, about a month goes by, and we're living in a completely different world, but not really that much has changed. Really, this is probably going to be a pretty short episode unless I manage to ramble and milk it for some non-existent ad revenue money or something, but it's going to be a pretty short one. There's not too much to talk about. I'm just going to talk about a couple things just to give you a little sneak peek of the two topics I'm going to talk about. I'm going to be talking, well, I guess it's three really, but I'll be talking about the government shutdown in the United States ending, what it means, what we learned or potentially learned or should have learned from it, and what it looks like moving forward. And if we might have another one in the future, maybe in January or something. Also, I'm going to talk about potential war with Venezuela, why it's not good, why I don't support it, why it's not what I voted for, and why I hope it's just a little bit of flexing and nothing more. And then I'm going to be talking about the Epstein files, something that is drawing a rift between the MAGA coalition. And I probably have a different opinion than most people, but it's true, it's correct, and it's one that you should agree with. So if you find yourself disagreeing, maybe you should start your own podcast and tell me why I'm wrong, or come on my podcast even. That might be preferable. Anyway, stay hydrated, stay caffeinated. Caffeine should be the only drugs that you do. Caffeine, maybe nicotine. Nothing else. Life is good enough on its own. Anyway, one thing I did want to discuss before actually getting into it was something that I found that was really interesting, story that I had heard. So a couple little topics I wanted to discuss. So the Netherlands just had a last second prime minister shock. So they had an election to elect their new prime minister, and it looked like, just like I'd been talking about, just like I'd been not warning about, because that's something I think that's ultimately going to be good for Europe and Europeans, but I talked about the surge in right-wing populism across Europe, and there is a guy, I think it was a guy, I don't really know, I don't pay attention to Dutch politics, but there was a Dutch right-wing politician who looked like he was the surefire guy to win the election, and then last second, there was a shock, and the Netherlands ended up electing another kind of like empty suit, wouldn't be surprised, World Economic Forum guy, who also happens to be the first openly gay prime minister in the Netherlands. So that is not the part that's a shock at all. If there was anybody in Europe that was to have the first openly gay prime minister, it would be the Netherlands. The Dutch are very proud and prideful, and allies or whatever. So that I just thought was interesting. How this guy kind of swooped in last second. A lot of money came in, support came in, votes came in for him last second, and he got elected. So, I mean, to be fair, the Netherlands is a great place. I do really like it, but they're not a player in European politics, in the EU. They're a very strong economy. They have supposedly the greatest, most robust Social Security program in the world, the best retirement program in the world. But as far as the world stage goes, they're not like a big player, and that's probably why they're successful, honestly. If I was to run a country, I don't think I'd want to be a world player in a world. Look how badly it's working. The United States is $37 trillion in debt. They're the world superpower. Second world superpower is China. They have things falling apart because things are made of cheese in China. Their military can't do anything correctly. They have way too many people. People die on a regular basis because buildings are collapsing. They're also in a lot of debt as well. They have kind of like they're a paper tiger economy. So I wouldn't want to be a world player either. If you look at like the happiest places on the planet, the most economically sound and safest places, Finland, Norway, Switzerland, the Netherlands, they they don't get involved on the world stage often. So also, something else that I thought was funny. So Germany announced goals of wanting to increase the military size. They want to have 200,000 or so active duty military members. So they're instituting a voluntary military service system where you go in and you do a physical to see if you're physically fit, and then you can do a contract for a year or two or something, and then you have this like special status, which I think is really funny because they could completely fill their military with millions of people if they take the military age African and Middle Eastern refugees that they've taken and given German papers. Not a conspiracy. This is happening. I know it's happened. I have German colleagues who have told me about it. This is the Germans' way of addressing complaints from the public on the affordability crisis that's happening in Germany, the inflation, the Social Security network is falling apart. Not nearly as bad as the United States, but it's on its way because their system is similar to ours, similar to the United States. And when Germans go to their politicians and they complain about the fact that they're struggling to make ends meet, and then cash and credit cards and affordable housing and aid and the ability to not have to work, the ability to not have to learn German, so which basically makes you not able to work. Why is this happening to these refugees, to these immigrants? And then the Germans go, what do you mean immigrants? This is a German man. Because they gave him German papers, they gave him a red passport, and they're now a German citizen. So I think it's really funny that they're starting with voluntary service to go send German men, young German men and women, to die in Russia, probably, because this is probably what this is for. Maybe even they'll send them to Africa, to die in Africa, or to die in the Middle East. And I think it's pathetic. So then you'll have no German people left. You'll have no young German men left. No young German women left. And then it would be a country of people from the Middle East who go around stabbing people in the neck. So that's where we're at. That's where Germany's at. And I thought it was crazy because one of my German colleagues used to serve in the Bundeswehr, which is the German armed forces. He served in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and he had a couple deployments in Afghanistan. He also told me some stories of some people who were deployed in Kosovo and Croatia and Bosnia when they were going to war with each other, when Serbia and them were fighting. And all of the people who served over there had stories of, what was supposed to be Western forces, quote unquote, stopping genocide, helping Muslims, protecting Muslims that were getting genocided, attempted to be genocided by Serbia. They would hand them weapons, train them. This is similar to stories that many of us have heard from people who served in Iraq, deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan. But so the Western forces would hand them weapons, train them, teach them how to defend themselves, and then when they turn around, they'd shoot at them. So these refugees, these Middle Eastern refugees that we were supposed to be saving, a lot of them would shoot and end up killing the Allied forces. So why doesn't Germany just give weapons to these people too? Bring these people in, bring these millions of military-age people that they've brought in and given papers that are Germans. Do they have to sign up for the voluntary service? Because if they don't reach the numbers at a certain time, they're going to start drafting people, supposedly. We'll see how that goes. Do you think they're going to draft these military-age people? Do you think they're going to put guns in the hands of these military-age people that are stabbing people on trains? They're driving cars through crowds and explicitly saying the reason that they drove through a Christmas market. I'm talking about the guy from Syria last year. Explicitly stating, because the way the West has treated Syria, Do you think they're going to give guns to these people? It wouldn't be the dumbest thing that Germany's done recently. So that's where we're at. That's where northwestern Europe is at right now. Shady candidates coming in last second to win the prime minister slot, and then a fake draft, a fake military draft. And I always find it really funny when so many people have talked to me about how things are changing. History repeats itself. It's been almost 100 years, and Japan is wanting to ramp up its military because they don't really have one, and Germany wants to ramp up its military. It's just like the 1930s. It's like it is a completely different world. The size of Germany could never, ever, ever be a threat to the world again like they were in World War II. Their military size, like I said, is so tiny. Nobody would allow them to have nuclear weapons. They just shut down nuclear facilities recently. They demolished them, and it takes like 10 years to get those things started. Germany will never be that much of a threat. And anybody who talks about, oh, look what Germany might invade Poland again, it's never going to happen. Poland's military is stronger than Germany's, and it's just basic numbers. So Germany will never be a threat. Japan will also never be a threat. They're completely cucked by the United States. Whatever their military size grows to will only be because we allow it to. So, there's nothing to be worried about there. This is a completely different world than it was in the 30s, and it's really kind of naive to go, oh, look, Germany's military is increasing again. They're going to invade Poland and Nazis again, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of the rhetoric that, state propaganda in Germany and across Europe uses to try to demonize the AfD party. But things are going to continue to go downhill. People are going to continue to get assaulted across Europe by a certain car make and model from a certain region of the world, opposite of Middle West. And the populist surge will continue to rise. But now I want to transition into the government shutdown talk. So, the government shutdown is over. I honestly wasn't tracking whether it was the longest government shutdown of all time or not. Who gives a shit? Who cares? Yes, I do have a heart. Yes, I do care about the people who were affected. I have people that close to me that were affected by the shutdown. At the end of the day, what I was hoping would happen with this government shutdown didn't happen. It's not happening. Probably never will happen. What I was hoping would happen was, one, more waste and fraud would be eliminated. I was hoping that this was the fear of the Democrats. This is the fear the Democrats had, which is so funny that this is where we're at. This is the modern Democratic Party. They were worried that more leeches and cockroaches and lazy administrative level vacuums of taxpayer dollars in federal employees were going to get fired. They were worried. So this is the modern Democratic Party, worried that fraud and waste were going to be eliminated. That didn't happen. What ended up happening was we continued the spending levels that we're at right now, which are way too high. They were high with the last Biden budget. They were too high with the budget before. They were high with the first Trump budget. They were high pre-pandemic. So we can't even return to pre-pandemic spending levels, which, by the way, were also too high. The best indication for that is the fact that we're $37 trillion in debt. So I'm disappointed that more fraud and waste wasn't eliminated. More Social Security scams like the ones that Elon Musk was talking about, people who are over 120, 150, some people that are older than the United States itself. That's not being investigated. No audit system was created to prevent that from happening, from some type of mechanism that informs these people, that reaches out to them, that investigates them, that stops the payments to these 300-year-old people getting Social Security payments. That didn't happen. Like I said, more administrative level people, pencil pushers, people who click boxes, people that I, unfortunately, have to deal with and go through as a contractor. These people were not fired. These people weren't eliminated. They stayed home. They complained the whole time. Now they're back. Most of them are going to get back pay, and I'm not saying they shouldn't. The ones who worked should get back pay, and the ones who were forced to not work should also get back pay because they didn't ask for this. But I was hoping that what would happen was that we would just step back, take a look at the waste and the fraud, because it is untenable. We're $37 trillion in debt. Being a world empire is not good for business. Well, it's good for the stock market. It's not good for regular people, which is 99% of the United States. 99% of people to ever exist are just regular people. And, global politics is not beneficial for these people. So I was hoping that would happen. Waste and fraud eliminated, or at least exposed, and steps being taken, because I know it's not going to be something that happens immediately. When you deal with the largest bureaucratic system in the world, which is the United States federal government, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take years, multi-year plans, multi-step processes to eliminate this fraud, to cut back, to make sure to put mechanisms in place to prevent this from just reverting back to its normal state when the next president, the next administration takes over. But that didn't happen. We also didn't learn our lesson. I was hoping that the term government shutdown would be less scary to people, because the United States continued to roll. It continued to push forward because the federal government is not the beating heart of the United States. It's actually like the movie The Wolverine, where there was that machine that was hooked up to Wolverine's heart that kept him weak, that slowed his healing factor down. That's what the federal government is to the United States. It's just a bane on our existence. The United States is the people. It's the families that we raise, the friends that we make. Oh, in the end, the lesson to be learned here is the friends you made along the way. But really, the United States, Americans, America, are a people. The hardworking blue-collar people, the heartbeat of the nation. These are the people that matter, not the federal government. So we didn't learn those two lessons. So the government shutdown was a complete waste. It was a complete joke. No lessons were learned from here. And what's the point of reopening? Nothing changed. The only thing that changed is that you're now continuing to rob me and waste my taxpayer dollars on stupid stuff. So I'm really disappointed in that. I guess I'm happy that it's over. And a lot of people I know will be more stable financially. But at the end of the day, this should have been a turning point for America into a new golden age, and it unfortunately isn't, because the average age of a first-time home buyer in America just hit 40 years old the other day, an all-time high. So the average age that people are when they buy their first home, when they can finally afford their first home, and to be honest, they probably can't afford it either. They just get preyed on by a bank and make a stupid decision because everybody's financially illiterate, because they refuse to learn things in the age of information with the supercomputers in their pockets. They also weren't taught financial literacy in school. So it's a 50-50 responsibility. It goes on the schools, a little bit on the parents, and also on people, period. In 2025, you can teach yourself anything short of, becoming a nuclear scientist or becoming a open heart surgeon. But yeah, so the average age of a first-time homebuyer has hit 40 years old. The Trump administration is floating a 50-year mortgage, which you might as well not even do it. You might as well not do it, because the amount of interest you're going to be paying at the end of the day, you might as well just be renting a luxury home, because you'll still be paying less if you're getting a $4,000 penthouse for the rest of your life. $4,000 a month for a penthouse. You're never going to own it. At least you're not paying a butt ton of money in interest, first of all. And second of all, assuming you get approved for a 50-year mortgage when you're 18, which they probably will approve everybody. That's why they're trying to come up with this 50-year mortgage. You're 18 years old, you get approved, your house is paid off by the time you're 68 years old. And if you're an American, you're not living to be 68. So what the hell is this? It's a joke, that's what it is. And at the same time, we're flirting with potential war with Venezuela. And not just Venezuela, because Venezuela wouldn't really serve a threat to us. It's that the rest of Venezuela's allies in South America who don't like us, who we've probably tampered with their politics for decades, they're chomping at the bit to start funneling weapons and soldiers and ammunition and supplies through Venezuela to defend them. So I'm hoping that us sending naval fleets and dusting the cobwebs off of multiple bases that surround or are near Venezuela, hopefully that's just flexing. But you don't usually do that. You don't usually award or put out a solicitation for multi-million-dollar contracts near Venezuela if you're not planning on doing something big. So that's where we're looking at. New 50-year mortgage. Government shutdown with no lessons learned. Average age of a first-time home buyer is 40 years old. And, potential war in South America, which would be absolutely horrible. That'd be probably the nail in the coffin for the United States. We cannot afford it. First of all, although we have the strongest military in the world and we can do amazing things, like what we did with bombing Iran's nuclear facilities, it's not like before, when we could start wars and win them all the time. There's like this old rhino mentality that especially the Republican Party has, the neocons like Lindsey Graham have, where they just think we can start shit and we can end shit. No, we can't. We haven't won a war in a long time. We haven't won a war in my lifetime. We haven't won a war probably in my parents' lifetime. The last time we won a war, depending on your definition of war, has to be World War II. Was the Korean War a victory? Was the Gulf War a victory? Was the Iraq... I mean, I don't even have to say it. You can't go to war with cartels, quote unquote. Because first of all, you know what weapons these cartels will be using to shoot at our servicemen and women? Our own weapons. The weapons that Barack Hussein Obama gave to them in the Fast and the Furious scandal. So if you aren't aware, Fast and Furious scandal, this was Obama's administration's attempt to track down the cartels by funneling them military-grade weapons. The plan was to track them so we could figure out where these cartels lie and we can dismantle them. We ended up losing them, not tracking them. Now they have Stinger missiles, M16s, M4s, whatever military stuff we pumped supposedly to track these cartels to figure out where they are so we could destroy them. So then they now have the United States military weapons, ammunition. Who knows what we sent them? Who knows what we funneled through this system? Grenades, missile launchers. When you see videos of the cartels beating the crap out of the Mexican military to get back El Chapo's 17th son, those are with the United States weapons. They didn't get those. They didn't make those. those are our weapons, and those are the weapons they'll be using to Venezuela and these other South American countries in this coalition they make. The instead of the Iron Curtain, it'd be the Cocaine Curtain. But you can't go to war with rat cartels like this. They're embedded in the jungles. Underneath, they're like Hamas. They're underneath hospitals, schools, playgrounds, community centers. The most dangerous places in the world, a lot of them are in South America. The highest murder rates are in places like Honduras, places like Venezuela. These places they're not good countries. They're not safe countries, I mean. It's unfortunate for the people because they're hijacked by such evil dictators, but it's not something that we can do anything about. Venezuela has a lot of oil, low-grade oil underneath them. They might be the most oil-rich country in the world, but hopefully, like I said, this is just flexing. But you don't put out solicitations for hundreds of millions of dollars worth of contracts if you're just looking on flexing. I could be wrong. This could be a massive deterrence project. Great. We spent millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money on flexing on a South American country that's as trash as Venezuela, as trash as the Venezuelan government. I have no problem with us if we confirm that a drug boat that's trying to come to the United States has drugs on it. I have no problem with blowing them out of the water. I have friends that I know that have overdosed on fentanyl. As far as I'm concerned, you can blow them out of the water. I don't care. You don't get a fair trial if you're not an American citizen. Blow them up. I really don't care about that. But going to war with Venezuela directly is just about one of the worst things I could think of us doing. So, I hope it doesn't happen. I really don't. You can't go to war with cartels just like you can't go to war with terror. The war on terror was a failure. Millions of people were killed during the age of the war on terror. Lots of those being United States servicemen and women who came back completely forever changed. PTSD, became homeless, mentally ill, schizophrenic. A lot of them committed suicide. This isn't what we need. This is not what I want. This isn't what I voted for. This isn't what anybody voted for. Nobody voted for war with Venezuela except Lindsey Graham and our good pal, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who we're about to talk about in a second. Moving on to the Epstein files. So, the Epstein files. Dun, dun, dun. Democrats are still trying to push the same crap with the Trump Epstein files connection. I've said this many times. And this is completely true. It's the same for the JFK files. It's the same for the MLK files. There have been a bunch of Epstein files that have already been released. Not a single one of them puts Trump on Epstein's island. Not a single one of them puts Trump on Epstein's plane. Trump is mentioned in the files many, many times, but it's because the files are not just a notepad. Here's what people are expecting. This is why people still are talking about the Epstein files, which they should. But what stupid people, and by stupid I mean the majority of the public. I'm sorry, but the majority of the public are midwits. Just look at the IQ curve. There's 10% of the population is on the sub 70 IQ or sub 80 IQ. 10% of them are on the plus 120 side, and then 80% of them are midwits. I'm probably one of them. Okay, I'm not demeaning anybody, but most people are idiots. Okay, everybody's got TikTok brain. Everybody has dopamine addiction. Everybody needs things to happen immediately. That's why the Trump's approval rating is low, partially because of things like potentially going to war with Venezuela, not ending the Russia-Ukraine war, blah, 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 but also because people are just too short-sighted. In the United States, we have 4-year presidential terms. And if things aren't done within the first couple months, people assume that they lied. People assume that it was a failure because people don't understand how slow the system actually works. The rule of law is slow in the United States. It should be. It's good that way. It's fair that way. It prevents people from becoming, too immensely powerful, to where they can get in, become president, immediately start signing things into law, and then change the country, overnight. But what people wanted with the Epstein files is what people wanted with the JFK files. They wanted there to be a notepad that said, here's who killed JFK. People wanted the Epstein files to just have a notepad that had the names of 14,000 people that had been to Epstein's island. That's not what the files are. The files are flight logs. Maintenance logs, coordinates, conversations, receipts. There's probably hundreds of thousands of files that are meaningless like the JFK files. But the most important part is not a single file puts Trump on Epstein's island or on Epstein's plane. All that mentions him is he was in the area because it's New York City. Epstein lived in New York City. Trump lives or does business in New York City. He did fundraising around there. The facts are that in 2007, Trump cut all ties with Epstein. He said he was creepy. He banned him from all of his properties, and they hated each other. Epstein wouldn't shut up about Trump. He was pissed off that he was another powerful guy that he couldn't control. He talked crap about him all the time. He even floated the idea of funding campaigns and ads that besmirched him. They didn't get along after 2007. Another important thing is Virginia Giuffre, probably the most well-known Epstein victim. She was the subject of many documentaries. She was most likely whacked by the establishment because she kept getting into car accidents saying, I'm not suicidal, they're trying to kill me. She ended up dying. She explicitly stated that Trump couldn't have been nicer when she met him because she worked at Mar-a-Lago. She was a waitress or something. She said that he couldn't have been nicer. She never saw him on Epstein's island, and as far as she knew, she wasn't doing anything with underage kids. Okay, these are the facts. So whose words do you trust? Hers? Or some fake birthday note from before Trump cut ties with Epstein, before he was arrested or charged with any, trafficking and terrible, terrible crimes he committed? Whose words do you trust? Whatever happened to believe all victims? And it's not just the Democrats pushing this garbage. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene, friend of the show, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I've never been a fan of, never liked her, didn't like her before this, talked about her back in 2022 because I'm going to put this up on screen right now if you're watching the video version of this. Here's a tweet from Marjorie Taylor Greene. What's interesting about this tweet is she's calling out war profiteers. She's talking about how predicting war or talking about war or whispering about war is profitable. Let me pull it up because I have it loaded in my video editing right now. War and rumors of war is incredibly profitable and convenient. And just like that, the media now has a lie to use as the reason for our shattered economy and out of control inflation. What a sad existence it must be to shill for globalism and America last politicians. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, interestingly, tweeted this a day after she bought thousands and thousands of dollars worth of Lockheed Martin stocks. So if you don't know what Lockheed Martin is the second largest as far as profitability and revenue goes. It is the second largest defense contractor in America. They make all kinds of things. But why it's relevant to 2022 and Marjorie Taylor Greene being a war profiteer herself is that they make Javelin missiles. Javelin missiles that congressmen and women are aware of we're about to sign, or aware of we're about to pass an aid package, or aware that we're about to sell these Javelin missiles and these mines and these, crates of ammo or whatever. So Marjorie Taylor Greene buys potentially tens of thousands of dollars of Lockheed Martin stock, knowing that the Senate and the House are about to sign another aid package to Ukraine, because this is March of 2022. She buys this because she knows it's about to happen. She profits off of it, and then she tweets about it on her high horse. I have never trusted her. I've never liked her since then. Her fake blue-collar act has never fooled me. Her fake Southern draw has never fooled me. She's always been the same loony crackhead. She is the AOC of the right. She's a loony. She's not to be trusted. She's the Jasmine Crockett of the right. She's Georgian Jasmine Crockett. She's always been a wacko. She just chose to end her political career by causing a distraction and growing the rift with MAGA and populism for no reason. What does she expect to happen? Because the files that they're allowed to release, the files that are not part of pending lawsuits, so therefore they can't be released, they've been released. What does Marjorie Taylor Greene want? She's been on podcasts. She's done press conferences. Nobody's ever asked her that. Miss War Profiteer Greene, let me ask you, what do you want? Because that file with the names of 20,000 people or whoever, all of Epstein's clients, it doesn't exist. It's not how it works. Epstein didn't keep a memo that had a checkbox next to it, next to names of prominent people saying, oh, we got him. Visit number 12. We know that there are prominent CEOs. We know there are Fortune 500 CEOs. We know that there are politicians, former leaders of countries. The Prince Edward or whatever. I don't know these people. The one who just had to relinquish his titles had been there many times. There's pictures of him with known Epstein victims. He's there with Epstein. Bill Clinton had gone there many times. We know this. But at the end of the day, not a single log, not a single file puts Trump on Epstein's plane, on his island. Virginia Giuffre, believe all victims, right? She's a trustworthy person. I think she is. She said she never saw him there. And as far as she knows, he never did anything with underage girls. Not saying there's a 0% chance that he did things with underage girls. I'm not saying that at all. Things happen that she is not aware of, obviously. But who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust Marjorie Taylor Greene implying that there's, spooky stuff going on here? Which there is, of course. But what does Marjorie Taylor Greene want? She does this thing where she filibusters, where somebody asks her a question, why haven't the Epstein files been released? I got into politics when I didn't want to get into politics. I was running a tractor business or whatever bullshit fake story she's come up with. Her story's as fake as JD Vance's story. Fake name, fake story, fake career, fake everything. Everything about her is fake. Her net worth has skyrocketed. She's one of the worst alleged insider traders. There's pages dedicated to her tracking her stock trading, like there's pages dedicated to Nancy Pelosi. The Lockheed Martin one is not the only one. So, who do we trust here? Do we trust the logs, the files that have been released already? Do we trust Virginia Giuffre? Or do we trust Marjorie Taylor Greene? And then the Democrats who are trying to distract and filibuster and just slow down progress for the midterms. Because that's ultimately what's happening here. Again, Democrats have yet to offer a solution, have yet to offer a platform. Their platform is still Trump bad, Trump bad. And the only unfortunate thing is with Trump is his handling of the Epstein files. He hasn't done a great job. He hasn't been transparent. He hasn't had, he's had idiots. He's marched idiots out because he hasn't taken it seriously. He kind of underestimated, how seriously people take these files. And I'm not trying to understate these files, but what I'm trying to say is to be patient and to have realistic expectations. Because the same thing happened with the JFK files. Almost everything was released. All it did was just further cloud the mystery behind who killed JFK. But the answer is, at the end of the day, when you look at these files, when you looked at the JFK files and you pieced it together, multiple different organizations, multiple different groups wanted him dead. They probably all played a part. They probably all collaborated. The Italian-American Mafia, the CIA, the FBI, foreign nations that didn't like JFK, they all colluded. But there's not going to be just one sticky note that says, I did it, and my name is blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing for the Epstein files. So people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, they should never be trusted. They should never be taken seriously. She's a wacko. Her story is fake. She's been a blight on United States politics. She's been a blight on American society. She's never been a serious person. She's never done a good thing in her life. She's the poor man's, like I said, she's the Republican Jasmine Crockett. That's the value I put on her. Oh, I just tell it like it is. That's why people don't like me. No, you're insane. She's insane. She's making the Epstein files about her because Trump put out a Truth Social about her, and now she's talking about, I'm receiving threats, and as a woman, I take threats from men very seriously. She's making the Epstein files about her. She always has. Everything is about her, her, her. She's an unbearable person. I've never liked her. I don't pay attention or take anything seriously that she said since the Lockheed Martin stuff. Since she tweeted about war profiteers a day after she profited off of war. Being in a privileged position of being a congresswoman. So, nobody should take her seriously. What she's done here, to me, is on the same level as what Liz Cheney did, except it's worse because she's actually hurting the MAGA coalition. She's actually hurting this populist surge, this populist movement. And it's worse because she just does a better job at pretending to be a populist, pretending to be an American firster when she's not. Oh, wow, she's never taken money from AIPAC. Cool. She's taken money straight out of the hands. She's got multiple hands in her pockets from the defense contracting industry. And not just them. If you just go to Twitter right now and you just look at the pages that are dedicated to tracking politicians' stock trading, she is one of the shadiest traders. And she constantly says, oh, I don't trade stocks. Yeah, you do. It's public information. Who else is honorary Marjorie Taylor Greene? It's you. You're trading. You're shady. You're just like the rest. And you shouldn't be taken seriously. That's how I feel about Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Epstein files. Unfortunately, this is, permanent damage has been done. And, like I said, there should have been a developed, transparent process. Trump should have walked out there himself. He should have had J.D. Vance go out there instead of idiot Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, who nobody takes seriously. He should have come out. He should have had J.D. Vance come out and talked and said, here are the phases. Phase 1, we're going to release these files. Here's what you're going to see. Here's a table of contents. Here's here they're categorized by blah, blah, blah. Here are some prominent names that we can share. And some of the things that we can't share, some of the things that are redacted are because they're part of current lawsuits. Current victims are suing these people, so we can't talk about them. We can't trot them out. We can't trot out any files that might accidentally imply certain people that are a part of lawsuits. But they didn't do that. Pam Bondi did a theatrical little clip where she said, I have the files on my desk right now. I'm looking through them and they're going to be released. And then they walked back and said, well, we've had to watch a bunch of horrible surveillance videos to saying, well, there are none. There are no files. There's no client list. He was just a guy. He trafficked victims to nobody. So it's just been a bad, terrible mishandling by Trump. And it's just from incompetence, I believe, or him just being bogged down in doing other more important things. Not that it's not important. I'm just saying there was a right and a wrong way to do it, and he definitely did it the wrong way. And he deserves criticism for that. But I don't think he did it because he's in the files or because he's implicated in a serious manner, other than he was in the area of Epstein a few times, or he knew him in the past. Everybody knows that he knew him. Billionaires know billionaires. Billionaires hang out with each other in the same social clubs. And like I said, before Trump banned Epstein from his properties, they were all friends. Everybody was friends. Trump was friends with Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, the Bushes, the Obamas. They're all friends. So it is unfortunate that Marjorie Taylor Greene is taken seriously or supported by anybody. I don't advocate violence against her, of course. I do believe that there might have been some threats made against her. And, I just hope she uses that Lockheed Martin and the alleged insider trading money to beef up her security. I don't want anything bad to happen to her. I just want her voted out. She's not a serious person. She's a fraud. She's a fraudster. She's like AOC. She probably got in with good intentions. Maybe, I don't know. Whatever. Got in with good intentions. Saw the swamp was too big. Decided to just take part in it. She doesn't deserve to have anything bad happen to her. She just probably should be punished with the full extent of the law for potential alleged, quote-unquote, insider trading. She should also never hold public office again or even breathe the air within a 50-mile radius of a public office platform. She should never be in power in the public sphere ever again. She can go back to the private industry. She can go golfing with her buddies that she insider traded with. Maybe she'll get a job at Lockheed Martin. I don't know. But I don't want her in politics. I'm not from Georgia, so she doesn't represent me, but she does represent my country and people that I know and people that I love and my fellow Americans. So she should be held accountable, just like Trump should be held accountable. The first segment of this episode was me holding him accountable. He's not doing a great job when it comes to the foreign policy side of potentially going to war with Venezuela. Didn't handle the Epstein files as good as he should have, but he's not implicated in a serious way in these files. And it's a shame that MAGA is being torn apart by this because people just have unrealistic expectations. Look at the files yourself. Before these files were even released back in like 2020 or 2021, I actually read and looked at Epstein flight logs on the podcast. I had them I had a video podcast where I looked at them, where we looked at the handwritten flight logs by some of these pilots and, the maintenance crew and all that. You have dates, you have times, you have initials of passengers. So you have PC for President Clinton, BC for Bill Clinton, you have PE for Prince Edward or whatever his name is. So you can look at these right now. You can look up the files and read the ones that have been released right now. And it's just unfortunate that people have unrealistic expectations. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Or maybe it is. I don't even know what that means. That's going to do it for this episode of Independently Minded. Before I forget, I do want to make a recommendation. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, I'm actually going to attach the song at the end of this episode rather than my regular outro music. But Pour the Henny by Mobb Deep. So Mobb Deep came out with a posthumous album. It's their final album. The guy that Tupac dissed for having sickle cell, he actually died, probably from having sickle cell. I want to say back in 2019, 2017. So they put together, some recordings. Was a little hesitant on listening to it because a lot of posthumous music lately has just been so distasteful. It's played up with way too much editing in the studio, AI crap. The vocals don't sound the same, but it's a great album. I forget what the actual album's name is, but the song specifically that I'm recommending that I will attach to the end of this is Pour the Henny by Mobb Deep. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Hope you got something out of it. If you have any feedback, send me a DM on any social media platforms. I'm probably on there. I don't use TikTok anymore, so don't bother on TikTok. But Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, hit me up on those. Make a comment. You leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I'll probably get it some way. Yeah, give me some feedback. And I'm always looking for guests. I'm always looking to learn stuff from people. Tell me about your life. Tell me about your occupation. Tell me a scary story. Tell me about a time you got arrested. I don't know. Tell me about a time you gave a kid a swirly. I don't care. Just come on my podcast and let's talk. I'll catch you guys on the next episode. As always, stay safe, stay away from those crazies. And here is Pour the Henny by Mobb Deep, if you're on Spotify.